Welcome to episode 9 of TML Weekly. We're down a man this week. Nolan thought it was more important to go on a hot vacation than it was to be with the boys. So we have a suitable replacement here. Young Jack McWilliams is beside me. How you doing, Jack?
Good.
You happy to be on the podcast tonight?
Yeah.
You want to talk about the Leafs?
Yeah.
And then always my adversary and friend, John. How are you?
How you doing, brother? I'm pretty good tonight. Unbelievable, these young kids, thinking they can just take time off, want to go on vacation. We're gonna have to sit him down and give him a little lesson, you know what I mean, when he gets back.
Yeah, I heard I was talking to his dad, and they went to him and his brother went up and met his dad in Detroit, and they went to the Blackhawk Detroit game the other night. So just I don't know if this has been brought up on the show, but the Nichols, Nolan's family, they billeted some Guelph Storm players. So one of the guys that they billeted when Guelph went to the Memorial Cup a few years ago was Mackenzie Entwistle, who plays for the Blackhawks. So they went down and got to see him, and they're playing in Detroit, but PK wasn't. He was signed, but he wasn't playing yet. So that would have been quite exciting.
Kidding.
So before we get into the Leaf stuff,
well, actually, hold on, John. Before I got to ask you this though. I was around a rink in Hamilton this weekend, and I'm not going to lie to you. I was watching a double A Hamilton Huskies game, and when the kids got off the ice, there was a lot of people talking, and they were talking about the the double A Halifax Hawks red team, and there was a lot of, they were like, these guys sound like they're for real. So there's a lot of hype coming down here, and I was hoping maybe you guys could give me a little bit of an inside tip on what's going on.
We have one of their defensemen sitting right here right now. How'd the team start here, Jack? What can you tell our listeners and viewers how you guys are doing?
Good.
What did you know your record in the regular season?
Like 12, 1-1.
10 or 11, yeah, something like that. One loss, one tie. We're in first place in the standings, and then overall, do you remember the record overall? I think it's
15-3-1.
15-3-3. So 15 wins, three losses, three ties, and they're a well coached group. The kids all get along. It's been a fun start to the year. Hey, you want to give a shout out to any of your teammates? No, you don't?
Come on, you got to give a shout out to your teammates, buddy. Who's your defensive partner?
Yeah, you got the platform here. Who do you want to shout out to?
Who's your defensive partner?
Who do you play? They kind of rotate because there's 5 of them. You don't want to shout out anybody? No? Wow. You know what, Jack? It's a team game, right? You guys all have to do your part to succeed, and they've had a lot of fun, and like I said, real good group of kids and families, and they're at the top of the standings right now. So hopefully they can keep
Jack,
going here.
We've heard about you down in Toronto, Jack. People are worried. They've heard you guys are coming for them. So there's a little bit of concern going on here in Toronto.
Yeah.
No, that'd be good if we got to play one of the Toronto teams, hey? Yeah. Well, we have a game tomorrow. We wanted to leave remind. What time? 6 o'clock in Sackville against who? Sackville Orange, and they're we haven't played them in the regular season yet. We played them in the preseason, but
you know what? Rule number 1, Jack: never trust anybody with orange in their name. Rule 1. If you remember that in life, you'll be fine.
That's right. So let's get talking about the Leafs here. So they had when we left you last week, we had I think there was 3 games. There was that goofy overtime one. What one was that?
Yeah, that was I think that was the Seattle game, wasn't it? Where we went into overtime and we thought we lost. And
I thought that was a different game. I thought that was a different one. I get them all blended up here. Let me look here. Seattle definitely was an overtime game.
Yeah, Boston was the overtime. Seattle was an overtime.
Who did they play before that? I thought there was 3 after our show last week before the weekend.
There might have been. There might have been a Tuesday, a Thursday, and then the Saturday. I can't remember who we played on the Tuesday off the top of my head. I thought we played Seattle.
Yeah, Panthers. That was the goofy overtime.
Florida was the goofy overtime.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I'm as critical as I am of the Leafs, and we all know I'm very critical. I thought this was a pretty good week overall. There's not a lot. I was pretty pleased overall that in every game we were there. We we had gaps and we have things that, where we disappear for times, and you can kind of, I don't want to say you can live with it, but when the results are there, you can get by with it. If we were losing these games in overtime, that's another story. But overall, I'm pretty pleased with the week on where we are. If I'm going to be critical of anything, and if I've got to be critical of something, John, I'm going to be critical of. Listen, I watched the game against Seattle. We're going into overtime. We get a penalty, and your head coach is trying to put Ryan Reeves on to go across the ice for a penalty. And it takes Ryan Reeves to say to the coach, hey, just a heads up. Yeah. Just a heads up. If you put me on, I'm happy to serve the penalty, but you put me on, and I'm going to be on 4-on-4 in overtime. Is that what you want? And he goes, oh, you know what? I didn't realize we were in overtime. It was 4-on-4, and maybe I don't want you on the ice. And then he's kind of laughing about it later. And part of me kind of went like, that is not a good look. That's not a good look. And again, if that was the only mistake and that was the first time something like that came up with the coach, I'd be the first guy to give him a pass on it. I don't know, man. I don't know. That's my only negative for the week. Other than that, I'm pretty happy with the way everything's gone. But if I got to be negative,
you gotta realize, and people have to realize that defensive core is pretty bare boned, and they're squeaking through, and they're actually playing. They were winning games early, but allowing 4+ goals at home, and they're not doing that so much anymore. They're tightening up structurally in the back end, and it's like I've said all along. When you have the puck, that's the best. That's the best defense is a good offense, right? When you have that puck, and I'm pleased too. What do we got? Ottawa. Who else coming up? Do you see the?
I'm pulling up the schedule right now. It looks like the Leafs just signed Noah Gregor to another year.
Good.
775. That literally is just coming out right now while we're talking. Breaking news. We got breaking news. I feel like we need Wolf Blitzer on here. Little breaking news tab going across the bottom. Listen, I was going to say, I was watching. There is a lot. I don't know what you're hearing, but I'm hearing right now there is a lot of heat coming. Like, we're going to Ottawa on Thursday. That is a place where young DJ Smith. I don't know. Listen, I've gone on record. I've been on this show and talked about it a few times. I'm a big DJ Smith fan. I think he's a very good NHL coach. But there is a lot of heat on him right now, Johnny.
Oh yeah, you know what? There's and it's well. You got to look at the sum of all parts there, right? You got a new owner. You got a new kind of guy in charge, and Steve Stales. That obviously is eventually here he's going to bring in his own guys. Okay, you got a losing record with a team that had a little bit more promise than expected. He'd be gone already, but the players have spoken, and they've come in and said, hey, you know what? This place has been mismanaged, and it's been a gong show in here. Now we finally have some stability. Give this coach a little bit of a break. The players literally asked for him to stay on, or he would have been gone already. Stales would want to bring in his own guy.
Well, and eventually he will.
It's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
You're postponing the inevitable here. Jack, you got something to say about Ottawa? Who do you like on Ottawa? Who's their best player?
Timmy Stutzla?
Brady Tetra.
Yeah, he likes Brady. Well, who doesn't?
Cool
But
guy.
that's what's going on there. But for sure, it's something's gonna give. You mentioned Stutzla. He's making the news for all the wrong reasons. His diving and his theatrics aren't going to make him any friends with the officiating people in the National Hockey League. They have a book on guys like that. They'll go into a game and say, okay, who's the divers here tonight? And they're not going to get the benefit of it. No, he's a nice young hockey player. He's got real good feet and real good vision, and he contributes. But if you get marked as that guy, you're not going to get any calls.
Ask Nazem Kadri how that went for him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's taken him years to kind of shake that early dive, go down for every time somebody breathes on you. You're not going to get those calls.
Right.
So listen. So we're walking into Ottawa. Do you have I'm starting to wonder about our third line. I'm looking at the ice time that we're getting, and do you think, based on history and based on what we know is going to be required in the playoffs, do you think that a third line playing 10, 12 minutes a night with Yarncroc and Domi in the middle and Robertson, can you see that line staying together by the end of the season, or do we got to get some reinforcements in there to help that?
Well, I think you get you're going through an audition phase right now for the playoffs, right? I mean, I think everybody can agree this is a playoff team. Unless something catastrophic happens, this team's going to be in the playoffs, probably in one of the top 3 Atlantic seeds. So what you're looking at is you're trying to find that healthy, and we've talked about it. I think that there's going to be, lots of different combinations. I think they could, they have the personnel here to go to a top 9 and spread out a little bit, depending on your opponent and who you're playing in the first, second, third round. If you get there, that 9 approach, if you have home ice, can really work, because it's kind of like pick your poison, right? If you got if you put Nylander centering a couple guys on the third line, and then you've got Marner, whether it be with JT or Matthews, and then Nyes with the other, you got a pretty scary 9 there. Whether you're on the road or you're at home, if you can throw that look at a coach, it's tough to play, because who does their second line go to? But I still think that they're going to make moves. Treliving has never sat pat. He's never really out of anything. I'm not surprised if he's got multiple conversations going on with multiple types of players, not just defensemen. And he's looking for the recipe that he thinks is going to get him there.
And so, listen, while we're on the tree topic, our always favorite, always shopped about player, Nikita Zadorov, ended up going to Van City today, or not today, but last week, for a 3rd and a 5th. Now, I took a lot of heat online for saying that, listen, I'm okay with us not going in on a 3rd and a 5th, because of the fact that it's not the picks that are the problem. It's the cash retained and what that's going to do to us on other players that we're going to be in on. For anybody that was out there thinking that Nikita Zadorov was the answer to our problems, and that that was going to be the move, we were going to be okay, and everything was going to be fine, you guys have not spent enough time watching Nikita Zadorov play. He's a nice player, but if there was not going to be salary retention involved, and they were not taking, say, a Klingberg back, or something to free up significant cash for us, that deal doesn't make sense for us.
For once, I agree with you. And you know who he is? You know what he is? Honestly, he's McCabe with 4 more inches. That's what he is.
And so,
And that could be a good thing or a bad thing, but that's who he is.
And I don't disagree with you. And you know what, John? I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. If I have a guy that I want us to get, it's a player we've already had.
Labushkin?
You know I love him. I do. I think he is.
I'm hearing his name right now.
John, I think he's – you know what? And he's a guy that Keith knows, and a guy that, while he was here, was very trusted in high leverage situations. Played well for us down the stretch. I never understood that we let him walk to Buffalo. But that's a story for another time. But I really think that is who I would like to see, come in. And it's going to cost a lot less than what it's going to cost to get Zadorov, in my opinion.
Yeah, I still think it's going to be bigger. I still think, I think there's a lot of smoke screens and a lot of, Tanev for sure has been discussed, and he'd be a useful guy. But I still keep going back to Mackenzie Weegar. I just see a fit for him here. You got to make the dollars work. You just found out that the cap's going up 4 next year.
It's a little less though than what they projected, though, wasn't it? I think they projected 5.
Yeah, they projected 87, and it's 83.2 or something like that now. Yeah. So that comes into play. But Mackenzie Weegar is a very, very good National Hockey League defenseman, and would fit in very, very well. But you got to figure it out. It's going to cost you a forward. I don't know who, to clear up cap space, but let's see how it all plays out here. But that's who I think he's talking to Connie about in Calgary.
Here's my only concern there, John. And listen, Mackenzie Weegar is a nice player, 29 years old, and we got 5 more seasons at a 7.5 cap hit.
Yeah,
That's a lot of cake. That's a lot of cake for a long time for a defenseman who's not young. I'm not saying he doesn't help us.
The next 3 years you can win.
Yeah, that's fair. It's fair. No, it's fair. And you know what? The last 2 years or the last year of that contract is going to look like, I don't know, maybe what Tavares is going to look like at the end of his.
It's going to look pretty good if you got a couple rings, though.
Huh. Patrick, why? I can't hear you. I've got 2 rings in my ears.
Yeah. So sometimes you got to make that bold move, and if you can be the magician that brings in that piece, that's the type of player I think that will make a difference. Labushkin, will he add? For sure. He's he's a heavy,
heavy front of the net guy.
Yeah, he's kill penalties. That's great. But when you bring in a Weegar that can play in all situations, did you see the rumor? I don't know if it's a rumor or true or whatever, that Berkey could have had Hedman for. It was 2 players. It was a pick and Kadri. Did you see that?
That can't be true. That can't be true.
Yeah. I'll look it up here. You got a couple questions for Jack about his favorite Leafs? Go there and I'm going to look this up.
Okay, so while you look that up, Jack, who is first question to you? All time in the history of the Maple Leafs, who's your favorite hockey player?
Still Austin Matthews.
It's hard not to love the Savior. He's so good, isn't he? What is your favorite? What's your favorite thing about Austin Matthews? Do you like his shot? Do you like his leadership?
I like his playmaking.
Do you think that, because I look at Austin Matthews and I think you bring up a great point, Jack. His playmaking is often underrated because everybody thinks about Austin Matthews as a goal scorer, right? But it's a lot of the little things that Austin Matthews does that create opportunities for his line mates to get great opportunities, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And so if you were going to, who do you think, you're playing hockey now, and I know you're playing defense, who's the guy that you think you're playing the most like now?
Well, maybe like, I know I'm not as good as him, but like Cale Makar.
Cale Makar, buddy, that is about as good a defenseman as you could ever pick. Cale Makar is one of my all-time favorites. You know that?
No.
Yeah, he is. I love Cale Makar because do you want to know what I like about Cale Makar the most? Is that as good as Cale Makar is, and let's be honest, he's probably top 3 every year, right? In defenseman.
Yeah.
But as good as he is offensively, he's equally as good in his own zone. And you know what? His players, his teammates, they all respect him because of the fact that he doesn't play one way, he plays both ways. And I'm sure your coach says that to you, right? You got to be responsible both ways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And Jack likes to look after his own end, and he likes to contribute offensively. So he's in a good spot there, and he's got 4 other good solid D to play with. So they have a really good defensive structured team. So yeah, that's a good comparison. So here it is here. Okay, and I knew I wasn't crazy, and I dreamt this. So 2009 draft. Okay. I think, isn't that JT's year? Jonathan Burris's year?
He 09 or 08. He might have been 08, but okay, sure.
The Lightning had a tall demand for the pick. Lightning had 2nd overall, and they picked Hedman. And JT went first to New York Islanders. So the Lightning had a tall demand for the 2nd pick to Berkey. Luke Schenn, and who was the 5th overall pick the year before. Yeah. So they had already had Luke was. I think he played in the NHL that year as an 18.
Yeah, he played his first year, and he was good.
Yeah.
He was good in his first year.
Yeah. So you got to take that into consideration. So you got Luke Schenn, and the who was the 5th overall from 08, and the 7th overall pick in 09, who the Leafs subsequently took Naz Kadri. But they could have given Schenn and that pick and got Hedman.
Oh,
you do it now, like every single time. But back then,
so listen, I know there's people watching us right now that are having strokes and just saying we could have had Victor Hedman for Luke Schenn and Kadri. Like, oh my God, what are we talking about? The only thing that I would caution people with very short-term memories on is you have to remember when we drafted Luke Schenn, the hype that Luke Schenn had was astronomical.
He's a sass boy. He was, tough. Had a real good tenure in junior. For sure, there were some comparisons, although be it a different position to Wendell, a tough, prairie boy. I get it, and I agree with you. Right now, if you look at that and you say, "Oh my God, how many cups have they won?"
Oh,
since 09.
You know what?
Right?
You know.
On the other hand, they might have won back then, but are they drafting Matthews? No, they're not.
No.
With Hedman in your lineup, you're not getting a 1st overall pick. You're probably not going to get Marner. You may not get Nylander, right? You're drafting in the 20s, probably.
Now, the interesting thing is, though, if we're going to be fair, though, to the hypothetical, if you're going to be fair to it, then Dion Phaneuf is not your number 1 defenseman. And if Dion Phaneuf is your 2nd pair defenseman, you're probably doing okay. And then you're building around Kessel and Van Riemsdyk, and Van Riemsdyk's probably not getting moved. So like there's other things to consider on the scope of things.
Van Riemsdyk wouldn't have been there because Schenn went for him. And
that's a good point too. Yeah, Van Riemsdyk wouldn't even have been there. But so, boy, talk about decisions not made. Yeah, no.
But you know what? I don't know if he's looking at. He knows he's going to pick Kadri at 7. They loved him. They knew they had Shen, who, like you said, at that point he was hyped. He was the guy, right?
Yeah, he was going to be a franchise.
And then you got a European defenseman coming over,
and he was going to be as good as Hedman. Like, you got to understand.
Absolutely. Yeah.
At the time, that was the projection on Luke Shen.
Was he though? Because I can remember there was a little bit of doubt whether New York was going to take JT or Hedman.
Okay, but all I'm saying is, like, I can remember you've got to go back to that point in time in Toronto. Luke Shen's face was everywhere. That was all we had. We were pinning the hopes on that kid. That kid really probably shouldn't have been in the NHL in his first year, or he should have been playing a reduced role. He came in, he played really well, but he was
ruined the kid. He's just finally a useful player now.
That's what I mean. I'm telling you, he was everywhere. He was on the milk commercials. He was on the side of the ACC when you were driving by on the Gardner. Luke Shen was everywhere. And it did Luke Shen no favors. And I'm sure if you ask Brian Burke right now, Brian Burke would be the first guy to say, yeah, we kind of fumbled that football. You know what I mean? That was not the best way to handle that situation. But at the time, that's all we had. Right?
Well, he was a mature kid, right? So he came out of junior a little bit different than most defensemen come out of junior. He was a man, right? He had a body of a man. He was strong, but
playing in Toronto is a different beast, though, John. Playing in Toronto is a different beast, right? So we got Ottawa coming up, and DJ, and then I think we got Nashville on Saturday. So
they're playing better than expected.
What do you think? A little bit off topic, but what do we think about? Are we surprised that Tyson Barrie is being shopped everywhere?
Well, Tyson's a useful player. Tyson is they say the most liked guy in the NHL. Tyson Barrie has the most friends. I mean, he's played for a lot of teams, mind you, but it's ridiculous how many people like this kid, right? He's asked for a trade, I understand. Is that what it is?
Yeah, and Nashville has no problem moving him.
Yeah, but you got to find somebody, right? I think he's useful. I wouldn't want him back here.
No. I'm not saying for us. But do you want to know where I think he should go back to?
Edmonton?
I think he should go back to Edmonton.
Yeah. Can they do that though? Can you trade somebody back within a year of when you move them?
Has it been? Well, I mean, you might have to have a third party involved in the deal.
Yeah.
To kind of circumvent that. You might have to trade him to Minnesota or San Jose and then have San Jose flip him.
Right.
You know what I mean, to make that work. But listen, believe me, not that I'm cheering for Edmonton and hoping Edmonton all of a sudden figures it out and puts it together. But as an ex-Leaf and as a guy who, was miscast here maybe and wasn't, kind of what we thought we were buying, I'd still like to see him do well. And he's had a good run while he was in Edmonton. That was probably the best he's played outside of his time in Colorado. Was when he was in Edmonton. So, maybe there's a fit there.
But I'm thinking Vancouver. I know he's a BC kid.
Boy, that's an interesting pick. Yeah. I could see that. I could see that working.
Okay, so Jack, I want some wise words from you before we start to wrap it up. What are you thinking? What do you guys have on the weekend? So you got what are the Hawks doing? You got a Sackville tomorrow night practice, Thursday practice, Friday. Who do you have Saturday?
Cole
Harbor, home of Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon.
You got to beat
Wings, and then Sackville again on Sunday. So hockey every day. This is your only day off this week, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And you're
thanks as always, guys, to our our sponsors, Bjorn Hockey and Don Cherry Sports Grill. I was in Sydney, Cape Breton for an ID camp on Friday, and I ate at the Don Cherry's in Sydney Thursday night. Fantastic, had a steak. It was awesome. The atmosphere was great. It was hopping in there.
Good place to watch the game too.
Oh, absolutely. What about you, John? What's on for the rest of the week?
Rest of the week, not a lot. We got Kara's doing heavy into volleyball right now. She's at a volleyball game as we speak. And last I heard, we were up. The first set was won. We were up in the second set. So shout out to Kara and the volleyball team. And we'll do Coach's Corner on Saturday night for the Nashville game. So for everybody, for all the Kara's fans out there that are wondering what she's going to do, Kara will be here live to give you an update. Before we get going, Johnny, I did want to ask you your thoughts on our goaltending. What do you think? If you're the head coach right now, do you run back here? We've had a nice little gap after the game on Saturday against Boston. Do you run back to back with Wall?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's kind of emerged in my, I'm looking at it as he's kind of got the net right now. Let's see. I think that's going to change. We've talked about this in depth. I just think if you have two useful goaltenders going into the playoffs that can both play, that's a real good spot to be in. If you're playing the right way, your goaltending may not be as important as you think. And like I said, other than Vasilevsky, the last 20 years, there hasn't been you haven't had the elite run of goaltenders. The Luongos weren't winning, and the Prices weren't winning. Vasilevsky's an exception to the rule, but it's usually somebody that comes in and their team gets hot and they step up at the right time. And I think both these young men could do this.
Well, you know what? It brings up a great question, and I know we got to go, but before we go, I heard that Gary Bettman was talking about the revitalizing the Canada Cup or the World Cup and things of that nature, and it got me thinking about our goaltending, Team Canada's goaltending, and I really don't know who's our goalie right now.
Connor Ingram.
Who?
Connor Ingram. 100%. He's the best goaltender in the National Hockey League right now. 13-3 with a .930 save percentage.
You want to put him
for Phoenix?
You want to put him in an international tournament?
He played the World Juniors. Absolutely, he's been there.
Listen,
and you know who his partner was, and I think that will be his partner on this team if things keep going. Carter Hart. Carter Hart and Connor Ingram, and then maybe Binnington for the Clown.
Binnington's American, wasn't he? I thought Binnington was American.
No, Binnington's Canadian.
Binnington Canadian? Oh, well, okay. I mean, maybe Binnington.
Yeah, but no. Connor Ingram. Connor, forget about nationality. He's the best goaltender in the National Hockey League right now. On a team that just beat Phoenix, or Arizona just beat in the last 5 games. They've beat the last 5 Stanley Cup champions 5 in a row, and this kid he's been an absolute horse from them. And I have to make a shout out because he's actually from my wife's hometown, Imperial, Saskatchewan.
Do it.
Imperial, Saskatchewan.
You gotta do it.
275. Listen to this. Town of 275 people. 2 people in that town, residents that grew up there, are in the National Hockey League right now. Connor Ingram and Chris Knobloch, head coach of the Edmonton Oilers.
Knobloch, yeah, he is. Yeah, good for him. All right, so
anyway, I mean, forget about international and this and that and the other thing. You're going to take the best goalie, right? And I think I see him and Hart. They were partners at the World Juniors. Hart and they're the same year. I think they're. I don't know whether they're 98s, 99s, something. I think they're 99s. Maybe
I don't know. The only thing that concerns me with that though, Johnny, is I remember when we had Justin Pogge, and he was like lights out at the World Juniors, and we thought we had the next second coming. And then we found out he wasn't the second coming. He was actually just Justin Pogge. So,
but this guy's in the NHL. Justin Pogge never did anything in the NHL. This guy has consistently.
Listen, Justin Pogge had a great set of goalie pads. Let's not lie.
I remember his World Junior year in 06 in Vancouver when they won.
Hey, listen, he was lights out. He was fantastic. Okay, so we got between now and the next show, we've got 4 points up for grabs. What are you thinking? Who do you like?
I like all four. I think a little break this week will be good. Ottawa I think Ottawa will be tougher than Nashville just because it's Toronto, Ottawa. But I expect 4 points here this week. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take a split. I'm going to take a split. I'm going to think going on the road to Ottawa. Ottawa's under so much pressure, and listen, they play us rough and tough always, regardless of how good they are. Going into their barn with the amount of heat that's on them, I'm going to give us a bit of a pass. I think it'll be close, but I think Ottawa probably gets us. Coming back into Nashville, coming back home, I like us against Nashville. I think we should have won the last time we played Nashville if the coach made the right call on the goaltender of that game. Jack, let me ask you, buddy, what do you think about the head coach of the Maple Leafs?
He's not good or bad.
You're kind of in the middle with him?
Yeah.
I feel like you kind of nailed it there, buddy. I'm with you.
Is Toronto going to beat Ottawa?
Probably.
Is Toronto going to beat Nashville?
I hope.
They'll beat Nashville. Okay.
All right.
Well, stay
shout
safe
out to
Yeah,
I was gonna say shout out to Don Cherry Sports Grills for sponsoring us, Bjorn Hockey. Jack, good looking for coming on tonight, buddy. We appreciate you stepping in for us and being the third man in the booth. Good luck this week. I think you guys are going to play great and do well. And Johnny Mac, we'll see you next week, buddy.
All right, take care. See you, folks.
Bye.